have a lifespan of what looks like to be 2 months to 2 years.
She says the surgeon told her she was not a candidate for surgery and chemotherapy would not be effective either. The advice?
Talk to your family, get your affairs in order, which was indicating, whether you want to have medically assisted dying or not.
Here's what happens. They say there aren't death panels, but there's a very lengthy process. Picture the DMV with terminal cancer. Let's go to Canada. And this won't be as depressing as you think it will. And I really want to spend... Yeah, I know. Because it's Canada and it's about assisted suicide.
I hope not, because I want to live.
Yes. Well, good. I'm glad. You really sold that earlier with your intro.
Happy to be here.
Like,
I'm happy to be here on Earth.
Christmas and this show.
I want to live. Yay, living. Living is like more of a reward. So the acronym I'll use is MAID. That's Medical Assistance in Dying when we're talking about Canada. So last week, and this is something that I think is important because if you go back to really 2009 through kind of the Obama presidency, when I would do videos, typically back then once or twice a week, there was a huge discussion about obviously Obamacare and the concept of death panels. And the left would say, well, that's not really a thing. It's fear mongering.
Right.
And let me describe to you exactly what that is, and we'll get into it a little bit more later. The idea that in socialized healthcare, because of the resources being strained, that you will sit in front of a government body who will kind of do a risk-reward assessment of, do we really want to spend the money on you when it's stage 3 cancer? You lose your right to make your own medical decisions, ironically, from the left who say your body, your choice. So we now find ourselves... There's death panels way in the background because now they're just killing people in Canada.
Yeah.
And last week in a speech to Canadian Parliament, which is a silly place, the Canadian Conservative MP, Dr. Leslyn Lewis, really kind of revealed some disturbing truths, which we will fact check for you regarding Canada's assisted suicide. Sorry, wrong clip. Here is the appropriate one.
Last year, death by euthanasia increased by 30% from the year before. Wow. Every day in Canada, 36 people use MAID to end their lives, which is the highest in the world. Last week, I hosted a forum with Canadians who were disturbed by the expansion of Canada's euthanasia regime to include the mentally ill. This expansion isn't about compassion. It's a betrayal of the most vulnerable.
Now, of course, get your jokes out of the way as far as suicide. Like, ever spent a weekend in Winnipeg? Yes. Ever see a Leafs fan knowing they haven't won a cup in 77 years? Sure.
Yeah.
Of course, this includes a disproportionate number of former Expos fans. All of it, get it out of your system.
Yeah. Florida State fans right now.
You're better than that.
Yeah, you're better than that.
Yeah, we are. So last year...
Don't talk about bad poutine.
We had poutine at McDonald's.
It stinks.
What?
Yeah, it stinks.
Oh, no. Did you just hurt your neck?
What did you say?
You insulted the
We'll talk about this on Mug Club today, along with our review of Leo, but... Oh my gosh!
You're offended almost.
I regret the moving stipend to bring him.
Didn't somebody give you old poutine or old?
Did, yeah.
Okay, so you didn't have real.
Oh, we'll talk about it.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I didn't mean
that's like me saying, I don't like steak because someone gave me an old steak. It's not an appropriate assessment. We're going to do, you know what? Write this down, Michigan. We're going to do a poutine taste testing.
Ooh, there we go.
Here on this show. And I want an extra bit of penicillin in his. Now, so going back to the medically assisted, again, MAID. They're not being killed by their maids, I'm sure.
That's such a weird acronym.
Yeah, I know.
Like taking out the trash, but you see the I is not capitalized, and so they're like medically assisted death, MAD.
Right.
I don't think we're going to go with the MAD campaign where people are pissed off dying. We're just taking out the trash, which is you in this case.
So they call it the MAID campaign, and Arnold said, "Can I have sex with it?"
No.
I use MAID to create life.
Yes.
Not to end it.
No, wait. I mean, that's not my son. He just looks exactly like somebody I once knew.
Hey, kid. Yes, Dad.
I mean, yes, my maid's employer. And Maria Shriver's just like, whatever. I don't.
This is a charade.
Why would they have sex with the ugliest thing that's ever lived?
Because it was there.
Yeah, it was there.
It was right there.
I was drunk.
It's like a microwave dinner for my duck. So, okay, let's get back to medically assisted suicide. So this is actually, though, this is shocking. Last year, the medically assisted suicide in Canada accounted for more than 4% of all deaths in Canada. That's from Canada.ca. .ca means it's a legitimate Canadian website because they refused to use .com. My home province of Quebec, where I was raised, 6.6% of all deaths are from medically induced suicide.
That's insane. Just under ice fishing, though, which was 7.3%. But, you know.
Yes.
Wow, that is surprising.
I don't even understand the ice fishing thing. It's like, oh, yeah, let's go out. Let's create a heat. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
6%. That's insane.
We've gone off topic too much. But ice fishing, I have a thing. So they also started in March, or they're going to, in March of next year. 2023, for those watching this now, 50 years from now in your time machine. We're in 2023. In 2024, MAID will be expanding this to include mental illness.
Wow.
So let me read this from you. It says this includes conditions that are primarily within the domain of psychiatry, such as depression and personality disorders. So now people will be able to kill themselves. And think about this for a second. We talk about the difference between a culture of death and a culture of life. And of course, the left says, her body, her choice. It's completely inconsistent. And you just saw with Gavin Newsom, they will never name any type of restrictions to abortions up until and including sometimes after birth period. All right. But then we get to the idea of death panels and socialized healthcare, where really you're putting your hands in the life of government, whether you live or die, what kind of medical care you can get, because you are not paying for it yourself. You don't make your own decisions. It's the decision of the collective. And now we've gotten to the point, as far as a culture of death, let's just let people die. Let's just let people kill themselves. And let's expand it to mental health. Think about that for a second. Someone who is out of their mind because they have a mental health disorder is more likely to kill themselves, by the way, in a situation that's temporary, right? You alleviate the mental disorder, often you alleviate the suicidal ideation. Instead, the solution there is, you can kill yourself. It really does mirror the trans issue quite a bit, doesn't it? It's, hey, I'm really conflicted here. I feel like I'm suffering from body dysmorphia. Sure, rather than address the mental health issues, let's cut off your penis or let's sew up your vagina. Thank God we're not on YouTube today. It really is remarkably consistent, which you have to appreciate. And in Canada, by the way, this is already being used, for example, on the homeless and other vulnerable groups. So now we've expanded it to mental health. So let me give you a couple of examples. A 50-year-old man was afraid of becoming homeless, so he applied for MAID, basically to be offed. Right? He got one of 2 required doctor signatures for the approval, and then once he crowdfunded enough money, he retracted his application, his request. Think about that. This is the problem with suicide. It's a temporary it's a permanent problem to a temporary solution. You've heard that. Generally, cliches are useless. That's one that's incredibly true. In this case, the guy just needed a little bit more money.
Yeah.
Hey, in another case, maybe the guy needs a friend, mental illness. Maybe the guy needs someone who will hear his problems. Maybe the guy just had, his family members or his children killed in a car crash and he's depressed. Maybe there might be some kind of prescription that could help him. Maybe he needs some diet and exercise. Do you really think you're going to have doctors examining all of these issues before they sign off on assisted suicide? No, they're not. That's how you end up with over 4% of the population offing themselves at the hands of government.
That's insane to me. I think, didn't we cover that guy's story, the homeless guy?
Yeah.
Or the guy
that guy was afraid of becoming homeless.
So who's this one doctor that's like, I hate homeless people?
Yes.
Yeah, you should kill yourself, buddy.
Well, you think you might become homeless eventually?
Gross. Ugh, not on my streets.
MAID pass.
Yeah.
So
you have to get the doctor signature. You have to wait 90 days to get the second doctor signature. He crowdfunded enough money in that 90-day window. If he had not crowdfunded enough, it's likely that he would have gotten the second signature and potentially gone through with it.
Right.
Like, that's just insane to me that you would allow a program like that, especially when we've talked about people who have some kind of depression or mental illness and not allowing them to make everyday decisions for themselves, much less the decision to kill themselves.
Sure.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Also, you don't need a government program for this. That's also, you are putting a stamp of approval on the culture of suicide. I mean, a bullet is cheap. A cliff is free.
Right, yeah.
It probably does cost a lot of money to do this properly.
Whether you agree with suicide ethically or not, look, you don't need government intervention at that point. But this is because they want you to know that this is their culture. Yeah. This is their ism. And this is why when people say, ideology is a framework for the weak. No, you don't replace an evil ideology with no ideology, where I just take everything on an issue-by-issue basis. Well, how's that working out with people like Hamas, with ISIS? How's it working out in places like Canada? You have to fill that vacuum with something, ideally something productive, ideally something that centers around a culture of life. Basically, where we find ourselves now, and we discussed this in 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, people would say, oh, come on, that's a canard. That This is being offered as an alternative to basic healthcare. Why? Because they have a strained healthcare system in Canada, despite what leftists try to tell you about socialized healthcare. And by the way, here's the newest ad circulating, which I think is in poor taste, on the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, CBC.
If you get the opportunity, you should kill yourself.
Is life getting you down? Call the number on your screen. You can do it, but so can we. We're here to help.
I still take it over the commercials for pocket catheters.
You can do it, but so can we. That's the best line ever.
I want to go back to this too, because everyone made fun of any conservative who said, well, you know what, you'll be dealing with things like death panels. Now, that was a term to mean you will be seated in front of a governing body from public servants.
They got an emperor.
Yes, exactly.
Nope. But it's just hemorrhoids.
I hate them. And homeless? No.
Gross. Bring in the maids.
Ew.
Yeah, bring them in.
Bring them in. All of them. The uglier, the better.
So this guy.
Did you just stop yourself?
I did.
Come on, hit it. You know you want to. Go.
Shut up!
We discussed these back then, and the left tried to glob onto the idea of death panels, saying, actually, Snopes or PolitiFact, fact check. The government has not proposed an official arm titled death panels. So that's not what we were saying, but in case you've forgotten, time machine, death panels, and them mocking conservatives as though that would never happen.
In a healthcare debate that's grown increasingly contentious, perhaps nothing has drawn as much controversy as the so-called death panels.
There are no so-called death panels.
Is he a liar? He is not lying in that those two words will not be found in any of those thousands of pages of different variations of the healthcare bill. No, death panel isn't there. But he's incorrect, and he is disingenuous.
There are no death panels.
Death panels is pure demagoguery.
A guy walk in, give her a kiss. He said, "Joey, what about these death panels?" And I said, "Mom, I'm trying to kill you."
Another thing he couldn't accomplish.
And I'll give you a few examples here of some stories in Canada. And then, I'll give you some personal examples of family members who you can't necessarily know, but we can look at the actuary tables. We can look at the statistics regarding survival rates of serious disease. And I had family members who, if they'd have gotten care in the United States, very likely could have lived, at the very least, extended their life, at bare minimum, I should say, increased their quality of life for the last years that they had. So let's go to an example here. No death panels, January 2023. There was this woman, Alison Duclouseau. She was Canadian, diagnosed with a rare form of aggressive cancer. She was told by Canadian healthcare that she wasn't a candidate for surgery.
You have a lifespan of what looks like to be 2 months to 2 years.
She says the surgeon told her she was not a candidate for surgery and chemotherapy would not be effective either. The advice?
Talk to your family, get your affairs in order, which was indicating, whether you want to have medically assisted dying or not.
So here's what happens. They say there aren't death panels, but there's a very lengthy process. Picture the DMV with terminal cancer.
Yeah.
So they told her that you'll have to get a consult with a Canadian surgeon. That wouldn't be until 60 days after she had been told that she had 2 months to 2 years to live. So you have to wait up until day one of potential life expectancy. She traveled to Baltimore for surgery. There's a doctor there who performs, I believe, surgery 2 times a week.
Well, this particular surgery, so it's not extremely rare. This guy does it twice a week.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, this doctor performs the surgery twice a week. That's a specialty.
Just one doctor.
I also, by the way, I had an aunt who this exact situation happened. She was diagnosed with lung cancer. Took her a long time to go in and get diagnosed. And then it was stage 4 at that point. And then it was I don't remember if it was 4 weeks, if it was 6 weeks, for a follow-up to determine the course of treatment. I don't know if you know this, but when you're at stage 4, any type of cancer, certainly fast-growing cancers, every minute there is precious. It seems like an eternity. Now, I'm not saying that she would have survived here, but hey, if it hadn't taken that long to get in and to be seen, would it have been stage 4? Hey, if it was, let's say, stage 3, and she didn't have to wait another 6 weeks, could they start on treatment more quickly, more aggressively? I know that here in the States, many people who've had what would be typically death sentences. I know a guy with pancreatic cancer still alive.
Yeah.
You know what? Hey, we treat our dogs better here than they treat human beings in Canada. Hopper, the dog that precedes Joe Louis, we put him in CHOP therapy and it extended his life by another, I think, 14 months.
Yeah.
Have any of you had that experience here with cancer or a terminal diagnosis, or even with a human or with a pet? Point is, that's not an option in Canada. The government tells you no. And then what's the cavalry coming over the hill? You hope that they're American doctors or a plane ticket. Let's go to February 2nd in 2022. This is somebody who...
Same lady.
This is the same lady. This is the same story. She received treatment in America 35 days after the stage 4 diagnosis.
Less than a month and nearly $200,000 later, D'Cluso made the trip to the Mercy Medical Center in Baltimore for hyperthermic intraperitoneal chemotherapy, or HIPAC.
$200,000.
$200,000.
Yeah. But in Canada, let me just clarify something. You'll know the answer to this because you did this super viral video a long time ago about Canada's healthcare system.
Mm-hmm.
If she wanted to get treatment in Canada, period, if they were like, hey, we're not going to cover it.
Yeah.
People in the United States are like, all right, you go out and you pay for it yourself.
Yeah.
Do you have that option really in Canada?
So we didn't when I was in Quebec, at least.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, there's a Supreme Court case, Chauhy versus Quebec. This was a doctor who people would be put into these waiting lines where they were going to die.
Yeah.
And he was actually performing some multitude of treatments. It was private practice.
Mm-hmm.
People were willing to pay. He was willing to see them. He was shut down. There was a Supreme Court case in Quebec where they said, actually, it's a violation of basic fundamental human rights, not civil rights, human rights to not allow a person to pay out of pocket to save their own life. And that opened up what we now would consider kind of a two-tiered system where they have super hospitals in Quebec, or as we know them in the States, hospitals, where you can pay clinics for care. And of course, only the super wealthy can afford them. So Canada, this $200,000, of course, would not reimburse this woman for her surgery, saying that the services you chose to receive in the U.S. would not have been the recommended treatment for your cancer diagnosis, meaning here in Canada, where their diagnosis was if you'd rather die, then you'd better do it.
Yeah. A MAID brochure.
Yes.
Was their course of treatment.
Exactly. And here's actually Allison's diagnosis of Canadian healthcare.
Universal healthcare really doesn't exist. My experience is it's do-it-yourself healthcare and GoFundMe healthcare.
Yep. Jeez. And let me ask, have you ever had people try and still convince you that universal healthcare, like in Europe or like Canada, is a good option here? Seems that's gone away a little bit. We do have problems here. We absolutely do, because we have kind of a system that's a hybrid. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
There isn't enough of a relationship between patients and doctors. Insurance companies step in where they're not allowed to tell you the cash price if they know that you have insurance. There are a lot of problems. However, all that being said, if you have a terminal illness, the single largest contributing statistical factor in the likelihood of you continuing to breathe air is, do you live in the United States? I know you'll say, rich, poor, white, black, you are better in the United States, period, than Canada or our European counterparts. Your best shot at surviving cancer, for example, is here in the United States. It's not even close. We outrank Canada, UK on all major cancer survival rates. Most Europeans wait at least a month to see a specialist. Jeez. Just to give you an idea. So in the U.S., it's about 27%. Norway, 61%. Sweden, 52%. We rank first in medical science technology. Right? 8 of the top 10 medical universities are in the United States. Our drug prices here subsidize all of Europe. So they can get some things cheaply and perform it poorly, but they wouldn't be able to do it if not for the United States. And that's with us having a broken system that does need reform. So I just want to be clear about this. I hope that you understand why we are looking at assisted suicide. It is an alternative to the shitty healthcare that the left wants you to implement here in the United States.
Yeah, and it's a direct extension of those kind of death panels that we talked about. People sitting there and going, you know what? The healthcare system that you have chosen to live under is terrible for a lot of things, but mostly when you need it most.
And
that's
you know
not what you would do.
If you search it later, I believe it's Slate or Salon. I believe Ginger Snap found this. They said,
I think it was Slate.
Death panels are real, and that's a good thing.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, they change it later on. It's like, no, this is what they do. Deny. And like, well, hold on a second, but there are death panels, but it's not what you're saying. They say, okay, well, there are death panels, and that's a good thing. And then the next step is, well, hold on a second, we actually should just kill people if they're homeless or mentally ill. That's the sequence. Nearly all the time. No, hold on a second. Abortion is incredibly rare. I think abortion is terrible, but it needs to be safe, legal, and rare. That's, well, hold on a second. It's her body, her choice. And then it's, hold on a second. You have no say in whether it's viable or not. And then it goes to, you know what? Let's keep the baby comfortable. It survives an abortion in some kind of a rubber room and let it die. That's where we end up. It's deny reality, gaslight you, then change the game, and then say, well, yeah, but what's wrong with you in not supporting this? And that's how you find yourself at the impasse of 4% of Canada being killed through suicide.
We have the Slate article, by the way.
Yeah, do you have it?
Pull it up right there.
Canada has death panels, and that's a good thing.
It's that from 2013.
Yep. And John Oliver uses them as a source, unironically.
Very good.
And you've known about, by the way, Jill, the MAID problem in Canada for a while.
I mean, I think I heard about it from, somebody somewhere. Yeah.
Gerald, do you have a minute?
Yeah, come on in.
Thank you. I was wondering if I'm able to get a little bit of time off. My doodah died.
Your what?
My auntie. I've just been a little sad recently.
Would you maybe say depressed?
Maybe a little, yeah. It's very upsetting for me.
That sounds like a mental disorder to me, Sam. Hold on. Here. I have just the thing for you. Here you go.
What is this?
It's a plane ticket to Canada, my friend. You're going to get the best health care possible. Go ahead.
Okay.
Have fun, buddy. Yeah.
I don't know.
Hey, Gary.
Nice shirt.
Thanks, man.
Brings out your eyes.
Ah, I appreciate that. Hey, you like to travel, don't you, Gary?
He's like Mr. Nice Guy, but he's Mr. Eugenics over here.
Watch Louder with Crowder live Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.